Thursday. Kiannaa Sadge here. I decided to do a couple things differently. Number one, I'm outside today. And number two, I have a microphone. So let me just see in the chats, can you all see me and hear me okay? If you can give me a comment. Can you hear me? Hey, Nick. Good to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Yes, you can hear me. Hi, Tammy. Good to see you. Oh, and you guys are going to hear Ra. I've got a new microphone and a shaker for Ra. Okay, so I've decided in the coming days I'm going to do these videos differently, so we'll see how that goes. Hi, Eric, good to see you. Eric, why do you always post a broken heart? Curious. It's okay now, you can hear me fine? Beautiful. Well, my name is Kiannaa Sadge, and I guide people to peace, and today the topic is brought to you all from Peter. Hi, Peter. Peter sent me some comments of some topics, and today's topic is being emotionally switched off. That's a very big topic. So let me start by saying our expressions of our emotions and how we express ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually can often feel like a switching off. But that's because we are not taught geometrical patterns, we're not taught math appropriately, and this goes into all different kinds of aspects of how we have been intellectually conditioned about our ways of being that may be false or false, fake, imposter, misdirected, reversal. I mean, there's so many different ways in which we can talk about these aspects. So I kind of broke it down about like what's going to be most supportive to, this is my perception of what would be most supportive to people to help others to understand that experience of being switched off. Because there's a lot of people that are think that it's fine to be switched off and that it's okay to be switched off. And it doesn't feel okay when you're experiencing it. It's just what happens when we are walking in the aspects of the unknown, right? So those aspects of the unknowingness often come with how our brains are wired, right? And that those wirings or miswirings or misfirings are also going to be tied into perceptions, like how we are perceiving and how we perceive in relationship to our experience, but also our perceptions are also going to be based on our beliefs. So for example, this person here is saying something like, why are you using a man's words? Like, that's a perception and a belief that, you know, is based on whomever is deciding to say something that seems so skewed, but that's his or hers belief system. So who am I to say that his is right or wrong? I just know my own experience of my words, and they're neither masculine or feminine, but just an expression of my voice and my beliefs and my ways of being. Okay, so when we look at why are our emotions being switched off, it's usually going to be those three components or aspects really working um, in some way. Now, that way in which our brain is operating is going to be unique to every single one of us who are here listening and watching this video. But if your emotions are switched off and you have the awareness that your emotions are switched off, and that's not your preference, let's just say you are aware enough to know that you're emotionally not in alignment with what would feel authentic to you. So maybe there's an incongruence that you're aware of within yourself. That's what an emotional shutoff would be, right? It would be that expression. So now that we've kind of gotten that done and we have this awareness that our emotions are incongruent with our, or let's just say our emotional body is incongruent with what you might want to align with within, what do you do then? So let's just say you know your emotions have been stifled, and maybe you think you know why, because a lot of people think they know, it was this trauma, it was this experience, it was my parents, and they go into unknowingly, they go into this experience of victimizer, right? And that can be quite stifling to go into that, because that is an archetype that requires a pattern that I think probably everybody in humanity will have an experience of being shut down or rejected or dejected or exiled in some way. So when we have that experience, and we also know that we don't want to continue to shut down or emote our expression. So emote is an expression of our expressions, and we don't want to do that anymore. So let's just say we know that how I'm not emoting is not congruent with who I know my authentic self to be. So how do I then realign? And how can I change that off onto an on? And so, are you following? Are you all tracking with me? Because I came up with 3 different ways in which we could really go back to those beliefs, right? Because a lot of us have beliefs that not only do we not question, but we also don't. We don't even know what it is that we believe. Like, we're not even clear. So, if we know that our emotions are switched off and it's in some way, shape, or form tied to a belief system, if we can at least buy into that our switching on and off of emotions and whether to emote or not to emote is tied to a belief system, then we can get some traction to become our own healer, because we're always going to be our own healer. And although you might find somebody that helps guide you in a way, and there are some people that are saying you can't switch things on and off, and I would say, respectfully, that this is a metaphor. It's a metaphor. It's not a literal thing. It's a metaphorical discussion that we're having here about emotions and about the emotional body. So, John, you can take things literally or figuratively. It's an expression that's intended to be a metaphor. Okay, so if we can at least tie that our emotional expressions are in some way, shape, or form tied to your beliefs, and that's the theory that I'm working off of here. This is how I'm explaining a way out, is to, number one, know your beliefs. What is it that you believe about your emotions, and what is it that you know or can at least ascertain why you believe what you believe. Does that make sense? So, do you know what you believe about your emotions? Have you even asked the questions? And do you know why you believe what you believe? So, I'm going to use an example. So, some people might say, I shut down because this person is so loud, and because this person is so loud, I don't speak up. Or I don't speak up because this person is always talking, and so I can't get a word in edgewise. So we use, and that's exactly how the victim victimizer archetype plays out in a conversation. But let's just go down that rabbit hole for a moment and just see what beliefs might you ascribe to that keep you in alignment with that aspect that doesn't align to who you want to be, right? So then you would just go down that rabbit hole and start to say, well, I believe, women were meant to be quiet, seen and not heard. How many of you have heard that? So there, you want to get to, that's just an example of like a belief that you may have been taught as a little girl in the United States. That's something that's not uncommon. Or you raise your hand or you don't get called on, and those types of things. So you want to go and identify what your beliefs are and do a belief inventory. If you are looking to grow in your emotional expression, you would want to do a belief inventory and really identify what the beliefs are that you have around your emotional expression, and also what are those beliefs, what's supporting them, what's the why. And there's a really technical way to do it. I'm pretty technical. I like to bring the airy fairy into practicality. Okay, Kiannaa, how do I do this? What do I need to do? Because for me, that helps me to see and gauge progress, because I think progress is important. And that's something that I value. I want to make sure not only am I progressing, but I'm not regressing. So that's number one. So this is all tied to the beliefs, right? So then it's like, what would be the rules that you use to ascribe to the values of emotions? So consider that for a moment. Okay, so when you are understanding your values and you put and ascribe a value to your emotions, that will help you understand how you are imbalanced or not. So going to the topic of this week with the law of gender, it's really about the unification of the masculine and feminine energy. And oftentimes when we are off balance emotionally, we want to look at both where are we holding masculine and feminine energy. So let's just say you're looking at wanting to dive in deeper to not switching off your emotions, which would be, not connected, right? That would be another way of disconnection. And that's happening at a cellular level. If we look at, well, maybe I want to, what is it about the emotions that I want to explore and be curious about? Because a lot of people who have switched off emotions or are closed, that's another way of saying switched off is more like saying a closed system, meaning they're very controlled in how they're allowing their emotions to be expressed. And is that just what it is, or is that what they've learned? So there's that. So let's just say you want to learn how to express yourself more emotionally. what part of the emotions interest you most? Like, do you have an interest in any aspect of the expression of uh, emotions? So I told this story before, when my mother was on her deathbed. One of the things that she shared with me is that she was always jealous that I could cry so easily. And I was really just taken back because, one, I had been familiar with sibling rivalry and female competition, but I had never really connected female competition with me and my mother's relationship. And it was certainly there. I just wasn't aware enough at the time to look at that. But it certainly plays out in many families. I'm not unique in that way. The female competition is a big piece of what happens with women. And my mother described that she was jealous of my ability to cry. So when that happened, I was taken back. But then also I was able to have compassion, because for me, it comes so incredibly easy to emote. I don't have a problem. And I never had a problem with my emotions, because I was never ascribing my emotion or my experience to anybody else but me. So if somebody made me cry, it wasn't that they're a bad person. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you want to, maybe that's your thing and you want to learn to cry. So I'm just going to say that for those of you who have a difficult time expressing tearfulness or expressing and allowing that aspect to flow, which is also a connection to the elements of water, right? Because when we are water, a large percentage of water is what we're holding in our human body. So water is a big expression of that. Tears are a big expression of our connection to the elements, the four elements being, air, water, fire, earth, and then there's ether, 5 elements actually. And so, that would be a good starting point. So if my mother was on the receiving end of this video, I would say, maybe just watching a movie that is going to open your heart. That's a tear jerker, if you will. And I don't want to give you all a recommendation on a movie because, I'm somebody that I can, cry at a reel that I think is touching in some way. And I could cry 1 minute and be fine in another minute. I just allow myself to be in touch. But for those of you who are not aware of what makes your heart open, that might be a good place to get curious about. What causes my heart to open? And a lot of people will know what causes their heart to close up and constrict. But I'd ask you to ask the question that was going to open you up more to your multi-dimensional aspects, which come through your heart, which is a portal. So the other thing that might be an expression that most people don't understand is laughter. And laughter is one of my favorite things to do. And that is also emotion. Some people, I like to cry, laugh until I cry, for example, because I think that's just the best of the whole thing. You can't breathe, your stomach's cramping, and you're crying. It's just it's the total package, right, of expressing and feeling. It's it's exuberating. But maybe some people here in this video and watching don't allow themselves to fully have a belly laugh. So maybe you find something that you find funny. I know for me, I don't laugh at a lot of things that other people laugh at. I don't laugh at jokes that I don't care for, that make me think that's not funny to me. So it might be interesting for you to explore what areas of emotion that you want to learn how to express. For those of you who have been struggling with expression of emotion, that might be a good way to start. And it's that'll help you turn the emotional body back on in a way that's authentic, real, and also conscious and purposeful, which is what we're going for here. And then I thought it would be helpful to for those of you who are willing to take up a challenge. And I'm just curious. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to save the third one for last. And I'm going to ask you, how many of you want a 40-day challenge, emotional challenge? To grow. Because maybe some of you don't want homework. You know, how many, not everybody, I'm like one of those people like, okay, I've identified this as a weakness or a potential area of growth, which is both, right? Weakness is growth. They're the same. It's just a different perspective. I want that. And so I wonder if this chat aligns with that too. And if you want to grow, then I'm going to save number 3 for after the questions. I'll go through the questions and then I'll come back to what I am proposing as the root issue. And it's a challenge. And it's going to, I'll just let you know, if you're up for a challenge for growth, it's going to require a willingness to face what's hidden. Because the emotions are not always what you think they are. So let's see. What questions, anything that you all have going on? Oh, thank you for letting me know that the audio is good, loud, and clear. Yay! Let me tell you, not having the headset in is freedom. Thank you so much. Because I did not realize how much those headsets, I was getting ringing in my ear where I had the microphone after every one of these, and I didn't like that. So I'm just looking for questions. Okay, Eric's moving again. Okay, Eric, thanks for letting us know. I'm really trying to learn from you. Oh, good. I hope that this is different and insightful and helpful. I think tomorrow I'm going to try a totally different format. Something that's more aligned to how I authentically perceive, and it's all going to be present moment, and we're going to go with how I love to teach instead of how I've been teaching and consulting to, because I can. Salvo, I missed you yesterday. Good to see you here. Thank you for being here. Overspeed is saying they base behavior over the wrong experience. Well, wrong experience is the judgment, right? That's the ego mind. But experience is just experience. It's like, why question what is? It is what it is. So why do we have so much trouble with acceptance? Because of the mind. No, I am not Russian. Oh, the broken heart means you feel like you are having to move, and that breaks your heart. I get that, Eric. Okay, I see. I'm so sorry. I wonder if you could see your experience of moving as something different. Eric, I wonder if you consciously chose to express your heart as whole and complete. What would that look like? Overspeed is saying, I used to suffer from sticky thoughts in my mind, even interrupt my sleep cycle. Yes, lots of people are having interrupted sleep. Um, it's a very problematic thing for many people. You're not alone with that overspeed. I am clear in my beliefs. Good for you. How do you know that you are clear? I would ask. Hi, Sarah. Stay safe. So here's John saying you can't switch the emotions off. I think I answered that as a metaphor. It's an expression to help people have an idea of the emotions. Suppress, don't stress. Well, I would disagree with that, because what we suppress is considered more like a closed system, a constriction. So if you are into expansion and consciousness, then constriction, that's going to polarize you. So thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you. There's a lot of bots on YouTube. That's what these comments are. And there's a lot of energies that are parasitic, and they show up in people. So don't give it any attention. We have Peter on here that's working to help us for sure. Nick, if it's about beliefs, I'm a Muslim, I'm on the safe side. Well, Nick, you want to go to what you actually believe, not what somebody told you to believe. Okay? So really, I think it would be helpful, Nick, to write down this is the task with the potential challenge that you may or may not do that I give at the end of these questions, which is, are you willing to face what's hidden? Because if we believe what we've been conditioned and taught, then we're unwilling to question what the Muslim teachings are. We're unwilling to question what the Catholic or Christian teachings are. Then you may not be willing to actually see how that is impacting your emotional expressions. Just something to consider. You definitely don't have to. Trust and know your foundation. Believe it because it's true. Trust is a frequency that occurs within your heart, not within your mind, in my experience. Somebody is saying, yes, I have such a person that keeps dominating me. Well, so that's an agreement that you have, that dominate, to allow them to dominate you. So I would ask that you look at, if you really want to express something, how might you do a pattern interrupt for yourself in being perceived as dominated, and also create more of a unification in the communication. Gaming says, I'm so focused on my career right now that I don't get time to settle at work. The focus on your career is really a distraction. How meaningful is your career? Oops, sorry. It's meaningful for your livelihood, but you should still be able to be in connection and at work at the same time. So that would be the challenge for you, gaming. Somebody is asking what to do with a dominating person. I mean, the question is, what is it that you want to do? Forget about the dominating person. Like, what is it that you want, and how do you feel they're limiting you in your expression? How are you limiting yourself in your expression is the question. It's not what do you do with them. Your actually problem is you in relationship to them. John, it's actually very dangerous to connect beliefs and emotions. Feelings can be deceiving, especially fear. I don't see it as dangerous at all. I think it's actually an act of courage. So that would be a perception. Okay, I'm just going to scroll really quickly, looking for a question mark. Any questions or comments? I had an experience with this dominating thoughts, and I took pills for that. Yeah, and that's what a lot of people do. I think you're in the majority there over speed, that people think that taking a synthetic pill is going to address the problem. But in my experience, that masks it. It hides it even more. And then you get more misperceptions about what's actually occurring, because your reality is created from your perception. If you're taking a substance that changes that perception, whether that's legal or illegal, or prescribed or not prescribed, it's going to influence your reality, and your reality is created from your perception. So yeah, the people taking a lot of pills that are prescribed is problematic for the connection of the heart and the emotional body and expressing authentically, because people become more numb, more turned off, more confused. And why is that? Why are more people confused than ever? Because they don't know themselves. Why don't they know themselves? Because they're turned off, because they took a pill. I mean, we can go into all the reasons, but everything about the emotional body is about knowing thyself and experiencing yourself. Somebody is asking me if I'm a therapist. This is a good time to say, no, I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. I am not a doctor. I do what's called energy psychology, and I look at patterns that are incongruent with my clients and teams and organizations, and I look, how can we get this more into alignment physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? Jacinto is saying you got to shut off sometimes. Yes, I would say absolutely never. Why would you want to shut off your God-given expressions? Why would you go counter against God, source energy, creator, whatever you want to say? I wouldn't. But there are people that do. Are they doing that consciously? Or no, most people don't know that when they're turning off their higher sensory aspects, they don't realize that that's part of their unique expression. And they go into judgment or thoughts about it, which is a problem, because oftentimes our thoughts are not correct. Hi, Michelle. Good to see you here. John is expressing you can't shut off, close off emotions. The idea is a metaphor or not. It's definitely a symptom of mental instability or fear. That's John's opinion. My opinion is it's a description of an experience, and that's fine. So Johnito is saying, I cry all the time by myself. Why won't you cry with others? John is saying this is crossing over to spiritual deception. I don't think so, and I don't agree. But there are many spiritual deceptions, right? John has a lot to say. Humility creates maturity. Interesting. Just looking for any Final Destination says marriage sucks. Well, that would definitely be determined by who you are married to. And what agreements have you gone into in that marriage that makes it so miserable? God's harness says you have your own preferences. That's on your unique, and then it doesn't say anything more. Yes, we all have our own unique experiences. John is saying word soup to the basic foundation of adult maturity. John, it looks like you and I really just have different perspectives on how to approach emotional development. I've been doing this for, let's say, probably 30 years now as an adult consultant in the realm of leadership and emotional intelligence and the development of emotional capabilities that are beyond the constructs of traditional therapy. And what I can tell you is that routinely when we align with higher levels of consciousness, the word soups just become a judgment that we put on others. Juanito is asking, how do I get over loss? Well, loss is often perceived as a death of something. So I did a video on death and dying. I think if you go to that video, you would find some interesting, unique aspects that would be very supportive. But again, I would go back to like, this would be about your beliefs, because your beliefs are at the root of most of the struggles. Juanito has too many challenges already. Got it. Okay, just looking for questions. John. Hello. Juanito is saying, yep, it's like I'm invisible. I haven't said the challenge yet, so I was just looking to see. We have 140. If the majority of people want a challenge, you're going to get the number 3. So I'm just going to scan for questions. Big TC. You're back. It is evident that I am correct, and this is universally acknowledged fact. Beautiful. A saint told a man that anyone you marry will die, so her death will happen because he will marry her. Or will marriage happen because her death is destined? That sounds like a conundrum and a really worded philosophical question. If you're alive, the moment and the marriage that you're looking for is always going to happen within. Okay, I'm just seeing if there's any questions. I'm going fast down here. Why are we so afraid of separation while separation is a birth of itself? Um, I feel like these questions are Sorry, I went to Winston's comment. Why are we afraid of? I don't know how to answer that question because in that question is a blanket statement that might be untrue for the vast majority of people. So I would say, when you're saying we, who is we? I want to ask more questions about this philosophical question. Because this question is assuming that there is fear embedded in a way of expression. Okay, so I'm going to go see if you guys are ready for number 3. Kayette is saying, my reality is affected by my imbalanced brain chemistry too, genetic. I cannot run away from it, as God knows I have tried. It's not about running away. It's about finding at the root energetically what is occurring. And I know a lot of people go to doctors and say they think that genetics are something that's stable, but it's always changing. That's why they do blood tests. Why do they do blood tests? Because the blood changes. Where's the DNA? In the blood. So if the blood changes and the blood influences the DNA, that can change too. Yes? So it's as simple as hydration. When we hydrate too much, we can't read the blood the same way, can we? I don't know. Peter, I'm probably treading on your area of expertise here. Let's see. Johnny is saying, who is the self? Right. You should ask yourself that question. Come up with the answer. Who am I? Okay. So let's see how many of you are interested. Oh, more than half are interested in a 40-day emotional challenge to grow. All right. So let me just go down to, you could do an action that is an inventory on your belief system, right? Really know what is it you believe and why you believe it. Number 2, you could look at what are the values that you have ascribed to your emotional expression. Do you value it? And if not, maybe that's why it feels off. Like in some way, shape, or form, maybe you were taught to not, cry, or taught to talk, or taught to scream, or whatever. So you might want to look at those aspects. And then the question that I want to offer to you all to do for 40 days, since there is a significant amount of you who are willing to do a challenge, this is a 40-day challenge. Because at the root of your emotional aspect is going to be this frequency of truth. And I've talked about the truth frequency a lot. And a lot of people say, well, what is the truth? Well, the truth is a frequency. It's not a thought. We absolutely know that our thoughts, our perceptions, our beliefs can be distorted in this, what we call a 3D reality. So, and that could happen many different ways. We're not going to go into how distortions happen, just knowing that they can happen and do happen. The question that you want to do is, how can I build trust within myself today, every day? And be willing to look at building that frequency of trust within yourself. Because that trust is going to lead directly into your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. Does that make sense? So the question for 40 days is, how can I build trust within myself today? Every day you start off with a question. You can look at it multiple times a day, but the minimum is 40 days, that every day you do that. And then you start to dive into this willingness to see, sense, and feel what has been hidden, right? And so that's going to be an attunement that you will be able to feel yourself expressing. And since we're only in October, that means I'll still be here in 40 days. And in 40 days, we can check back to see, hey, how is that experiment going? How is that question manifesting in your experience? And then you become an experiencer of the truth frequency. Kayette Goodwin, this is such an interesting question. So are you credentialed to provide advice beyond the lay person? I don't even know what the hell that means. You tell me the system that is supposed to be credentialing wisdom. You tell me that. And by the way, this is a good time to say, take what resonates with you and leave everything else behind. If what I'm speaking or suggesting doesn't resonate with you, then you are the receiver of the information. You choose to do with whatever you want. If it causes you to ask another question to yourself or to go in a different direction, so be it. If you don't want to stay on the channel and you want to go somewhere else, so be it. I am not attached to your needs. Just looking. So what do you think about the challenge? Now that you know the challenge, are you still in? So those of you who heard number 3 and heard the challenge, where are you? Are you still in for the challenge? Okay, I've gotten through all of the questions. Do you have a daughter you can give me? No. What kind of question is that? So your emotional body is really about your willingness to connect within yourself and to look at what are your authentic ways, not what caused it. And I think that's where a lot of people really get tripped up, is they want to say that this is the cause. But if you're only limited by your perception, then you're very limited, right? Because we already know our perceptions are always going to be skewed by a whole slew of different things. So if we're limited by our perspective, why would we misalign to that thought? That doesn't make sense. Just curious. Today, the live stream is about emotions being switched off. It was a question of like how that happens and why is it happening and what is happening, and really how can we become more in tune with our emotional body. All right. So I don't see any questions that are relevant to the emotion. Darkness is saying us men are trained. I love that you're aware men are trained to not be emotional from a very young age. Beautiful awareness, Darkness. So why would that be? What belief do you have that connects that. And is that belief something that you align with today? Like, is that what you want to align to today? Oh, so John is disagreeing with you. Which, John, you seem to be in disagreement with a lot, which is a strong attribute. Empty is saying it was switched off as a young child. But then you get an opportunity from an adult perspective to go back to your child self and say, okay, this is what I believed then. What do I believe now? And you get to restructure, reprogram yourself. That's the beauty, is that what happened to us as children does not have to remain our truth when we become conscious and aware and willing to face what has been hidden. Because a lot of us don't take time to go back and see. And by the way, a lot of us aren't even capable of going back to what might be referred to as a past life, the truth of who we have always been. Because we think that this is it, because that's what we've been told. Like, how many people walk through life struggling like this is life, this is it, and that they're not pleased with what is. A lot of people do that. Isaac, more important, what do you think the purpose of life is? I think it's to grow and expand in consciousness and greater alignment within. Adolf is saying, why can't boys cry? The society considers it weak. Why do you believe what society is telling you, is what I would ask. Why do you believe boys can't cry? And is that true? I've seen boys cry. Texas Repo is saying, who sets the limit? Right? When you're conscious and aware, you can change the limitations. If we don't know what the limits are, or that we're embodiment of closed systems, then we struggle. Darkness is saying society as a whole does not appreciate men, which are emotional, and I'm connected with myself. I don't know that that's the truth as I understand it from my frequency, but darkness, that's your understanding. And so I would ask you to go into your heart and to really see in your connection, where are you in appreciation of the man that you are? Forget what society might have be projecting onto you. What are you allowing to be stuck in your field? What are you allowing to stick to you? Isaac is saying you have to want to change to see any difference. Yes, and that's why I offered the challenge, is because, not everybody is up for a challenge to align with the truth. Because when you align with the frequency of truth, it's going to challenge your belief structures in and of itself. But in a very gentle way, in a way that you have complete autonomy of, you get complete discretion on how you operate within that challenge. My only challenge is to ask the question every day, and you are the learner, so you get to see, like, if I'm asking, how can I build trust within myself today? And I'm going to be the observer and heightened awareness of the truth within me. I'm going to take notes on what I'm going to learn. That's me. This isn't about training. This is about opening up to a system that's considered what's open sourced system. That's what the truth frequency is. Martin says, You are talking about interesting things, but there's too many people. So this is quantity over quantity. I need another platform. Well, thank you. John is saying, if men are trained to be unemotional, what is protectiveness, anger, fear, joy, etc.? John, I think you're missing, like, you're really taking things as a literal, and it's not about training so much as conditioning and indoctrination into systems that many people on this earth have gone through. So it's not that they can't feel aspects of emotions, it's that and you're really taking emotions to extremes. It's used as a way to understand something that seems very esoteric. Empty is saying, yes, but when you bring out feelings, now you are mocked and ridiculed. Well, there are risks to being courageous. There are risks to being vulnerable. In my assessment, they're always worth it when they're in alignment to your authentic self. And it might show you that the people that you are around need to be changed. You know, what good is it to be around people that are in judgment of others constantly? This chair used to be comfortable, but now that I'm reading these questions, okay, well, I believe in God, and I believe that life is a test between good and evil. Yikes. Well, then you're being tested. If you believe that you are being tested, you will be tested routinely. Darkness is saying men can cry at appropriate times. Well, then we would have to go into, what do we believe is appropriate or inappropriate? That's going to change and vary. So you are adjusting and changing yourself to be different during what's appropriate. Well, how about your emotions are your emotions regardless of appropriateness? John is saying this is not self-awareness. They are believing society is correct. John, you're onto something here, right? This is programming, this is conditioning, this is indoctrination of what it's okay to be and what it's not okay to be. The issue is not how the indoctrination became to be. It's about what are you willing to do to align to your authentic self, and whatever that is. And just using emotional expression as an aspect. Darkness is saying, I'm very proud of myself and the life I have made. Good for you. I'm proud of you too. The challenge is, how can I build trust within myself every day for 40 days? Asking that question every day for 40 days, and then be open from your heart, willing to face what's hidden and see what you become aware of. So I use the example of crying because so many people feel like crying is like one of the strongest emotions, but there are so many different kinds of emotions. It's one that's visible. It's also physical. It's also how the emotions move through the body. But, the emotions in and of themselves aren't something that you physically touch. It's like you feel it. Empty is saying there's a difference between your truth and what is truth. I disagree, because what you're saying, the distinction is on truth is going to be one of the mind. And what I'm saying, it's not of the mind at all. The truth is a frequency. And it's an alignment that we go into when we're willing to align to the truth. And when we're willing to align to the truth within yourself, that's going to mean physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Just looking, reconditioning can be very hard. Yes, yes, yes. And that's also going to go back to your values. Are you honoring your values? Are you in alignment with your values? Are you holding integrity in how you are expressing your authentic self? Does it affect one's health if someone watches you negatively? Everything you do has a cause and effect. Everything you do has a cause and effect. Okay, we're just about at an hour here. I'm just going to scan real. Darkness is darkness. That sounds like a marketing thing that you were taught. Show me. Darkness is saying I'm wrong. People can show me their friends, and I can show them their future. And I would say that sounds like something that you were taught. Prodigy is saying, how do I overcome fear? As a man, I do things despite fear. Well, fear is something that has been used against humanity since I'm aware. It's always been an aspect that's been prevalent, but it's become a frequency and a vibration that more people align to than they are aware of. So I would say find a process to address your fears and not allow them to dictate your behaviors. I believe in Christ consciousness, yes. Any questions? Scott says I'm deleting anybody that disagrees with her. And he got deleted. Hey, Toronto. Hi, Tina. Good to see you. Jesse is saying all you have to fear is fear itself. Beautifully stated. I've heard that before, but most people do not question their fears. They believe them. They believe fears. But they don't know what they believe, but they believe a fear. It's so interesting, right? You see the dichotomy and how hard it is. Jesse is confused. Being confused is a good state to be in. All right. So for those of you who are up for the challenge, now that you know what it is, let's see the poll here. Woo, 59%. Congratulations. Satchet is saying that fear is essential for a better life. And I would say that's a belief that needs to be challenged from my perspective. But if that makes you feel like you're going to thrive, so be it. Who am I to challenge your own belief system? And I think that, you could see in the chat that beliefs are really at the core of so much of our expression, how we interpret information, and it's so interesting. So the assignment for those of you who are willing, and it was like 59%. So I think that's awesome. So here's what I would suggest you do. 40 days starts today. Today is October 10th. So somebody do the math for me. That puts us I got to look at my calendar. I'll look at it later. 40 days from today, we'll come back around to this. But the question is, how can I build trust within myself today? Every single one of you is going to get different information, different insights, different awarenesses, different ways in which you can build trust within yourself. Okay? Trust is going to be in alignment to the truth frequency, okay? That's not going to come from your head, it's going to come from your heart. So, my only advice in how you are doing this is to be willing to face what is hidden, needing without judgment, go into non-attachment, to face what you didn't know before. So be willing to experience yourself differently, and see how that goes for you. And we'll recap. If there's any questions about that, we could do a check-in maybe halfway through and see where you all are at. So if challenging your beliefs can be quite ego triggering, because the ego mind really fights for status quo, right? So move at your own pace with this process. But I would take notes about this, and it's going to be quite different for each of you. It might trigger you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and that's the point of a challenge, right? To grow is to align all aspects of ourselves, and that's not always going to happen in your comfort zone. So you want to feel your way through this process, knowing that it's self-directed, and if you decide halfway through you don't want to do that, that's your choice. I am not dictating what you need to do. I'm just offering an opportunity to go into inquiry that will help you align yourself. And when you're facing something that's hidden that comes to the surface, sometimes that will make the mind go into judgment. And I just be aware of that. Just be aware of the mind doing what the mind does, knowing that when you're aligned to your heart and that frequency of truth, that there's no judgment. There's no right or wrong. There's no correct or wrong in your experience of how are you building trust within yourself. That is strengthening the emotional body in a way that's unconventional, right? So this is not therapy. This is not a therapist talking. I am not a doctor. I am an energy consultant, specifically to aligning the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bodies. So if you choose to do this challenge, well, then expect to be challenged. You're going to not want to do it one day. You're not going to want to see the truth, but you want to commit to doing it anyway, because you're committed to growing, expanding, and learning. So just going to see if there's any questions. And if not, I will see you all tomorrow. Jack says, so true about the ego. Tell me more. Oh, tomorrow we're going to change the format of this a little bit. It might be a little different, but it's going to be more my zone. All right. So thank you so much for joining. If you're interested in learning more about these different aspects, put your notifications on, and I will see you tomorrow. I try to come on here and do these videos between 12 and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's not always the case. I do what I can and I adjust as I need. So between 12 and 3 Pacific Standard Time. If you're new here, you'll want to put on your notifications. Darkness says, I don't want to become emotional. When I was a young man, I was emotional and rather be violent young man. Yeah, well, that's what happens when we're out of balance, right? So now you have gone to the opposite. Be a good man. I agree. Well, what's a good man? Go into that. Ask yourself, what's a good man? Is he shut down emotionally? Probably not. Is he balanced? Probably. I don't know. All right, Alessandro, good to see you here from Italy. What else did I want to say? My name is Kiannaa Sadge, and I guide people to peace. I do this every day. I focus on physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual alignment. And I hope you all have a beautiful day. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate you. Thank you, Michelle. Hopefully this is helpful, and I look forward to hearing you. All reach out or do a comment or an email. Let me know how you're doing on this. I might post something in a couple days for you all to chime in on the post and see how this works. Okay? See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.